Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I'd like to cover the topic of weightlifting actually. In this particular article from Your Physique 1949 in March, I believe, I found a very interesting article on Bob Higgins, otherwise known as Robert Higgins. Now, the article was actually named How I Trained to Break the Record by Bob Higgins. Now, he was a featherweight weightlifter that I'd like to cover briefly, and I think the moral of the story is the most important thing. Basically, how he trained his ass off, literally. So I hope you enjoy this short video on Bob Higgins and how he trained to break world records. Bob Higgins was, as I mentioned, a featherweight world champion. He was featherweight champion in 1947. He actually was born in 1925. And basically, at the age, therefore, of 22, he was already world champion, or 21. I'm not sure when his birthday exactly was. He actually started training at the young age of 17 and dedicated his first year to bodybuilding. But shortly after starting bodybuilding, he found that through his training that he really enjoyed the Olympic press. Now, back in the day, the Olympic weights were actually 3 different lifts: the snatch, the clean and jerk, and the actual Olympic press. And when he trained this during his bodybuilding times, he found that the Olympic press was his favorite lift. So then he actually switched from bodybuilding to Olympic lifting. And he states in this article that he started training 4 times a week, 3 hours a day on these 3 lifts, but especially working on the press. And he really liked the challenge of the press because it was so strict. It didn't really involve momentum and power like the snatch and the clean and jerk did. It actually required really brute strength, basically, because you start from a dead position on your shoulders. And if you know about pressing, if you've done it before, not from a machine for God's sake, but using a real barbell, you'll understand what I mean. And he basically just focused on pressing. As you can see from the photos, he actually used a wide grip because he says even though it was hard at the beginning from the dead stop, locking out was easier. So that was his preferred technique. And in doing so, he actually developed some pretty amazing pectorals, as you can see from the previous photo. And of course, he broke records galore. Amazing, really amazing. Let's go through them. At 132 pounds only, so that's about 60 kilos, he broke the US national record of 226 pounds. He tied the world record soon after with 231.5 pounds. And in an Indiana state meet, he broke his own record at 235 pounds, whilst his best lift in practice was 240 pounds. We're almost talking double his body weight on the press. That's incredible. I mean, this guy, look at his thighs, for God's sake. They're about to burst through his skin. I mean, he was short, so he had the leverage and the right structure for pressing, obviously. But I mean, if anyone tells you that Olympic lifting doesn't build strength and muscle, I mean, you should see these guys from the past and even people now. I mean, in the Olympic Games, if you see them pressing, yeah, some of them are really fat and big, but those that actually take care of their diets, they're so strong and they're muscular as hell. Incredible. And of course, he won the gold medal in the World Championships in 1947. His training system, I found his training system really, I was really awe-inspired by it. His warm-up with 135 pounds for 5 reps of the press. Then he would move on to 1 set of each of 150 pounds times 5 reps, 170 pounds times 3 reps, and 185 pounds times 1. This guy weighed 130 pounds. That's incredible. That's just a warm-up. His work sets were then 210 pounds, 2 reps, and he would do that for 5 sets. That is absolutely brutal. And he would finish that off with a 1 rep max of 225. And he would do this 4 days a week. this training would take him 3 hours a day. He actually was in great belief that the press basically recruited every muscle in your body, and of course it does. Your legs need to be stabilizing the weight, and you're pressing that overhead. So although you're not necessarily doing a squat, you're isometrically holding the weight over your head all this time, and on your shoulders, etc. And as he describes it so well in the article, he pressed, and kept pressing all night through, basically, until his body was just aching. He'd just fall on the floor from the effort. This is what I admire about the weightlifters and bodybuilders of the past. They train their asses off, balls to the wall. You know, I mean, these guys just killed themselves at the gym. No wonder they were able to develop incredible strength and muscle without steroids. It's that simple. And I've actually been reading the book recently, Dinosaur Training by Brooks Kubik. I mean, this is just such an eye-opener. I've read Hard Gainer, of course, which is very similar. All of Stuart McRobert's books are very similar in the philosophy. But this takes you back even further. These guys, I mean, this is true hardcore training. These guys just killed themselves. The amount of effort and mental fortitude placed in this kind of brutal training would floor anyone in the gym these days. I mean, no one would dare do this. I mean, people, when I do breathing squats, people in the gym just stare, because they don't, firstly, they're not used to seeing these techniques. Everyone's on machines nowadays. No one gets a barbell and does heavy stuff on it anymore. Firstly, they don't know how to do it, and two, they're probably scared and terrified of overtraining, or of really putting some goddamn effort in their training. I mean, no wonder they just inject themselves, because that's the only thing that they trust. That's the only thing that doesn't scare them. And I mean, it's so stupid, because they're just damaging their health. But anyway, I'm ranting now. These guys are amazing, these weightlifters and bodybuilders of the past. That's why I focus so much on them. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video on Bob Higgins. I mean, just look at his musculature. Do I really need to say much? This guy focused on Olympic weightlifting, on pressing, and look at his amazing physique. I mean, he's no Mr. Olympia, but damn, I mean, I don't care if this guy's got clothes on, he just looks impressive. Every muscle in the body is properly developed thanks to pressing. And I understand why Bob Hoffman used to go on about how Olympic weightlifting can truly develop your whole physique. I think he was right. Of course, it's not as aesthetic as a bodybuilder, because you can see his traps are overdeveloped, and certain muscles that are involved in pressing overhead are obviously going to be overdeveloped, like his back, his traps, and his legs. Yes, and he looks like a giant barrel, but who cares? He's strong as hell. And I mean, I think strength is just as impressive as an aesthetic physique. Of course, if you combine weightlifting with bodybuilding, well, then you're just going to look like a damn Hercules, aren't you? So I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you have, subscribe if you haven't yet, and leave me your comments. This is the Golden Era Book, and bye for now.